Hello again, film fans. Tonight, or today's feature international film presentation is Sin Nombre. Sin Nombre. Fantastic little film. Beloved little film. It's a 2009 Mexican-American crime drama, social commentary, thriller type film, action film even. It kind of defies categorization. I'm not even sure the filmmakers could put it into a category when they made it. But it's delightful because it's a great little slice of life from just south of the U.S.-Mexican border. Actually, a big swath of just south of the U.S.-Mexican border. However, I will tell you this up front. Warning, warning, warning. This is a violent film. The violence depicted is brief, but it's extremely realistic. I'm not one that scares easily. In fact, I really never get scared. But the violence in this film is disturbingly real. So there will be points where bad things are happening. If you get bothered by violence, maybe just close your eyes for a few minutes or watch it with friends and let them tell you when to open your eyes back up. So fair warning, it's rated R for sexual scenes, but mostly because of the fairly realistic and gritty, brief violence. Now, as I suggested, this film, even though violent, is actually kind of beloved by students, even though it's in Spanish with English subtitles. Maybe perhaps part of the reason that students love it is that it's realistic, gritty, real, grabs you by the throat, makes you watch it, but also because it's only 96 minutes long. You only got about an hour and a half for this film. It is from 2009, so it's more than a handful of years old now, but it's of no consequence. Its age is of no consequence because it's such a well-produced piece, and it's still so timely and still so topical, displaying events and things going on in the Americas like immigration, like gang violence, like the drug trade, that are still quite pertinent in today's world. So let's talk a little bit about where this film is actually filmed at first, and then we'll get to where it's supposed to be at. So it's supposed to take place in Mexico. It is indeed all filmed in Mexico. Maybe not exactly on location where they're suggesting they're at. And I'm summarizing like this for the research I found. If it's an urban scene, if it looks like a city, a cityscape, a train station, lots of people around buildings, it was filmed on location in and around Mexico City, which is, of course, the biggest city in Mexico, one of the biggest cities in the Americas. It is the capital of Mexico. It's a federal district of Mexico, so it's not like a state. It's like Washington, D.C. is to America. It's not a state. It's the federal district and capital. That's what Mexico City is to Mexico, except Mexico City's way bigger than D.C. It's not like 25 million people packed into it. Now, that's for all the urban scenes. You're also going to see a lot of rural scenes, especially on a train. More on that in just a second. And the more rural scenes, if they're out in the countryside, out in the sticks, that was filmed in and around Torreon, which is a city in the state of Coahuila. The state of Coahuila. Now, I said Mexico City is a federal district, capital of the country, much the way D.C. is to the United States. Coahuila is one of 31 Mexican states. So Mexico's political system is set up almost exactly like America's. They have there are a bunch of states united into a single country. The United States of America, but they have that in Mexico. But they only have 31 states. So the United States has 50, Mexico has 31. And Coahuila is a significant one because it's the third largest state of Mexico, and it runs right up to the U.S.-Mexican border. It actually shares a 318-mile stretch with the United States border, to be exact. And I'm telling you that because it's going to be depicted in the film near the end that some of these characters are crossing over that U.S.-Mexican border on a probably, it's supposed to be depicting a small little trickle of the Rio Grande River, likely somewhere near Laredo, Texas. So that's where things were actually filmed in real life. That's where the people were setting the cameras up. Where was it supposed to be depicting in the film? So basically on that note, what's the geography being depicted in the film? Where are they telling you they're at? Well, it's in Mexico, of course, but it's going to be a vast swath of Mexico, not just Mexico City and that state around Laredo, Texas. In fact, it's the perfect travel movie for use in world regions because it's going to show or depict all of Mexico from the absolute most southern point all the way up to the U.S.-Mexican border, which is about as far north as you can get still being in Mexico. So from the Mexican-Guatemalan border, these folks are going to travel all the way up to the U.S.-Mexican border. So it's a travel movie of sorts, but one with a pretty gritty and gut-wrenching plot, and one that's fairly insightful. And honestly, it's kind of scary because it's deeply authentic and is fairly realistic in its rendition of what's going on in this part of the planet. So the action in the film is going to start in the south and head north the rest of the entire film. The film's going to open up and introduce a couple of the main characters, Willie, nicknamed El Caspar, and Smiley. And these two guys are in the city of Tapachula, Chiapas. Right? And this is where it's supposed to be set at. Tapachula is one of the southernmost cities in Mexico before you get to the Guatemalan border. Chiapas is another one of the 31 states of Mexico, and it's the southernmost state in Mexico, pretty far down south. Now, you're also going to see depicted some other main characters, one in particular, Sarah, and her father and uncle. And they're just going to flash to it because these folks are going to be from Tegucigalpa, Honduras. They're going to flash to it, so where they're starting, Tegucigalpa, which is the capital of Honduras. And it's going to introduce them, but then we're going to pick them back up once they get across the border and basically start to bump into the same area of Tapachula, Chiapas, where these other characters are. The folks from Honduras are trying to get to New Jersey to meet up with well-established family in the United States, so they're economic migrants. Once inside Mexico, they're going to take a train ride, which is a well-established route for immigrants that are trying to get to El Norte, which is what they call the United States down there, El Norte, the North. And I think we can actually see the exact train route in question that's being depicted in the film on this map of the railroad system of Mexico. Here outlined in red is exactly where these folks are supposed to be going. And again, this is a fairly realistic, well-established route for movement of economic immigrants from the Central American region trying to get into the United States. But while the train depicted in the film may be the major vehicle of transportation, physically it's a big vehicle of transportation in the film, the film's main storyline arc vehicle is in the form of this gang. Let's get back to that. That's really what's going on here, or at least it's driving the action, is that those two characters, El Caspar and Smiley, are in this gang called Mara Salvatrucha, commonly abbreviated as MS-13, one of the scariest, nastiest gangs in the Americas, if not the world, but certainly in the Americas. They are at this point, they started small, but at this point they're a transnational criminal gang that originated in the prisons and bad neighborhoods of Los Angeles back in probably the 60s and 1970s and 1980s. But this gang that started there and permeated back into Central America has spread to virtually all parts of the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. The majority of the gang is composed of Central Americans, specifically, I believe this is still true, mostly El Salvadorians, and they are active in urban and even suburban areas, again, throughout all of North America. In the United States, the MS-13 has a especially heavy presence in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and the metropolitan areas in Fairfax County, Virginia. These are starting to be places that some of you are quite familiar with. New York, Boston, Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a heavy presence there, and Houston, Texas. This is a scary group made more scary because the gang members distinguish themselves with tattoos covering their body and usually the face as well. Now, here's why that's scary, by the way. They're a criminal gang, a criminal element that is telling the world, hi, look, I'm painting on my face that I am a criminal. That's atypical criminal behavior, Usually criminals try to blend in, try to hide, try to stay behind the scenes and not get caught. Why is it so important that these guys tattoo themselves fully and are proud of it and out in public? Is because they have no fear of retribution in most of the areas they operate. They simply do not care about the police or anybody else, and that's what makes them quite terrifying. Tattoos are facial tattoos are usually a sign of something scary going on, but these guys are also well recognized as one of the worst criminal elements on planet Earth because of the tattoos, because they have their own sign language, their own language. They are also notorious for their use of ultra violence to establish fear. I mean, honestly, it's almost like terrorism. Ultra violence to establish terror in the population wherever they're operating so that nobody would dare challenge them ever. They have their own kind of subcultural moral code that predominantly consists of merciless revenge killings, cruel retributions, and outright acts of terror against regular folks in the neighborhoods that they control in order to keep a lid on everything. And therefore, again, they don't have to fear the police. Nobody's going to tell on them. Otherwise, you're going to end up dead, and your whole family's going to end up dead, usually in some sort of public assassination. So MS-13, that's the group, the gang, the family that's depicted in the film, almost like a mafia, but more at the street level. And again, these guys have now permeated all parts of the North American continent in all the countries of North and Central America. So without any further ado, I'm not going to outline any more of the story, the plot for you. That can just unfold. I just wanted to give you the background of what you're seeing. I want you to understand that this is very realistic, semi-scary. So when you see this film, if you have no experience with it, be like, oh my gosh, this is people with tattoos on their face killing people in public. That's preposterous. No, it's not. It's realistic. So what you're going to see is a gritty, pretty darn realistic look into immigration issues in the Americas, gang culture in the Americas, and the background all this illicit activity is fueled by, which is the drug trade. Although not explicitly depicted in this film, drug money is behind a lot of the action that's going on here, a lot of the criminal action. So pay attention to the cultural cues of what's happening in these societies, what's compelling these people to move, to travel, to move through Mexico, to try to get to the United States. Pay attention to the cultural cues of their sense of security or insecurity, and especially their sense of family. Even though gangs seem scary to us, there's a really big family element to it that you'll see depicted. But even the regular families, their sense of family is important in Latin America. And also, an often overlooked thing when people watch films, pay attention to the background. Pay attention to the landscapes. A lot of North Americans, I should say, citizens of the United States, think of Mexico and they're like, oh, it's like all desert down there, right? Because I watched Speedy Gonzales cartoons when I was a kid, and it's desert and cactus. No. Watch as this film's landscapes and backgrounds change as they move from south to north. South is much more lush, tropical rainforest, even parts of southern Mexico. And see how things change. Landscapes they're not going to depict a lot, they're going to depict some as things move further and further north till they get to that U.S.-Mexican border. So pay attention to all those things and absorb this beautiful little social commentary piece of what's happening in the Americas here in the early 21st century. I think you will, in fact, I know you will enjoy this. Please enjoy Sin Nombre.